Jim Hopper doesn't enter Stranger Things as a hero. He's gruff, he's worn down, and clearly doesn't want to be involved in much of anything. At first glance, he's the kind of small town cop who does the bare minimum. But the more time we spend with him, the more we realize he's carrying something heavy. Hopper isn't just disillusioned, he's grieving, he's angry, and he's stuck. And underneath all of that, he's someone who still wants to do right, but he doesn't really believe he's capable of that anymore. That's what makes him such a compelling character. His story is about trying to claw your way back to being a person when part of you has already given up. Hopper's backstory explains a lot. Before Hawkins, before the lab and the Upside Down, he lost his daughter to cancer. And that loss destroyed his marriage and sent him into a spiral. He didn't just lose his child, he lost his sense of purpose. And instead of processing the grief, he buried it. Hopper uses emotional distance as a survival tool. He avoids connection. He keeps conversations shallow, and he leans into sarcasm and irritability. That kind of behavior doesn't come from nowhere. It's how someone protects themselves from feeling even more pain. It's armor, and like most armor, it isolates him. He's physically present, but emotionally, he's shut off. That emotional shutdown is why Hopper doesn't just jump in and help when Will goes missing in season 1. He starts off reluctant, even dismissive. But once he senses that something real is happening, a switch flips. His instincts kick in, not just as a cop, but as a father. That's the part of him that he's been suppressing. And once 11 comes into the picture, you can see that part fighting to come back to the surface. His relationship with her starts off rocky. He's protective, but also controlling. At times, he's almost overbearing. But it comes from fear. He already knows what it's like to lose a child, and he can't bear to go through it again. So he tries to manage everything. He tries to manage her safety, her emotions, even her social life. And like most people dealing with trauma, he confuses control with care. What makes Hopper's parenting dynamic with 11 so interesting is that it's not perfect. It's really messy. He cares about her deeply, but he doesn't always know how to show it in a way that works. He lashes out when he feels helpless. He tries to protect her by shutting her off from the world. And he expects obedience as a way of managing his own anxiety. But over time, he learns, slowly. He starts to see that connection isn't about control, it's about trust. That shift doesn't happen overnight, but it's clear by season 3 that he's doing the work. Not always gracefully, but honestly. Hopper's grief and growth don't just show up in his parenting. They bleed into every part of how he relates to the world. He's someone who feels the dysfunction of the town around him, but doesn't have much faith that anything will change. He sees the cracks, he knows when people are lying, and he rarely wastes time pretending everything's okay. That realism can come off as being cynical, but it's also what makes him effective. He doesn't get swept up in appearances. He's not interested in playing nice for the sake of it. And that's why he's one of the first people to see how off everything is with the Hawkins lab. He notices what others miss because he's not invested in keeping up a facade. What's especially important about Hopper's character is that he represents a version of masculinity that's both hardened and vulnerable. He fits the image of the emotionally shut down man who avoids feelings and buries his trauma. But the show doesn't stop there. It lets us see the cracks. It lets us see his guilt, his sadness, his need for connection, even when he fights against it. The show gives him space to be angry without making him cruel, and it lets him grow without making it easy. And that balance is rare. It's not a redemption arc that's built on a single moment of heroism. It's made up of hundreds of small, difficult choices to keep going, to stay present, and to let people in. Even when Hopper disappears and ends up imprisoned in Russia, his story doesn't get suspended. If anything, it intensifies. That time in captivity strips him down to the barest version of himself. No title, no badge, no home, just a man reckoning with his past, with his pain, and with the question of whether he's worth saving. And what we see is that he is. Not because he's perfect or brave all the time, but because he keeps showing up. Even when he's beaten, even when he's starved and exhausted, he doesn't check out emotionally. He fights, not just for himself, but for the people waiting for him back home. Hopper's character hits hard because he mirrors a kind of emotional experience that a lot of people never talk about. The experience of being present in a room, but feeling cut off from everyone. The experience of wanting to connect, but not knowing how. Of loving so much it scares you, so you try to manage that love instead of fully feeling it. And most of all, the experience of rebuilding yourself after a loss, not in some dramatic, life-changing moment, but in small, gritty, slow-moving steps. Hopper shows that healing isn't clean. It's often awkward, it's filled with setbacks, and it's laced with fear. But it is possible. And that's what makes Jim Hopper stand out. He's not just the protector or the authority figure. He's a man trying to live with grief, trying to be better for someone else, and trying to forgive himself for what he couldn't prevent. And in the process, he becomes one of the most grounded and emotionally resonant characters in the show. He reminds us that strength doesn't come from shutting off feelings, it comes from facing them and still choosing to show up, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And if you're interested in hearing some of my thoughts about other Stranger Things characters, I'd encourage you to check out this video. So that's all for today's video. As always, thank you for making it all the way to the end of this video, and I will see you in the next one.